Hello and welcome to this week's lessons. This week we'll be looking at three areas: grammar structure, where we'll consider phrasal verbs, spoken English, and we'll be looking at tricky consonant sounds in English, and continuous writing, where we'll look at debate writing. By the end of the lessons, you should be able to define a phrasal verb and state the kinds of phrasal verbs in English grammar. Should also be able to describe tricky consonant sounds and pronounce them correctly. Then you should also state the format, the features, and the style of a debate speech. Pay more than the usual attention so as to take in the lessons. We begin this week's lesson with phrasal verbs. Phrasal verbs are not only common in English conversations, but they're also very confusing, especially for people who don't understand them. This is why studying phrasal verbs is very important if you want to really improve in your English skills. And for this reason, I want you to understand phrasal verbs because it will help your fluency and boost your confidence while speaking English. So pay rapt attention as this lesson begins. So, what's a phrasal verb? It is a combination of a main verb plus one or more particles which are either a preposition or an adverb or both. Other scholars see phrasal verbs as simply idioms with special meanings. For example, if I say, my car broke down, in this expression, you can see broke down. Broke, a verb, a main verb, then down, a particle, a preposition. The first thing to note about a phrasal verb is that it has a main verb plus a particle which can either be a preposition or an adverb. And you don't have to worry too much whether the particle is an adverb or a preposition. In the course of this lesson, we'll show you examples that will illustrate them and make them clearer to you. Then another thing about phrasal verbs is that they can either have one particle or two particles following them. You must note this. In this video, I'm going to teach you 4 kinds of phrasal verbs: the intransitive phrasal verb, the separable phrasal verb, the non-separable phrasal verb, and the phrasal verb with 2 objects. Strange, isn't it? You don't have to worry. We'll find out how they operate. Type 1 phrasal verbs are known as intransitive or no object phrasal verbs. Okay? And that means that they don't need an object. There is no objects that accompany them. So, for example, you can say to someone, hurry up, meaning do something faster or be quick. Hurry there is the main verb, whereas up is the particle, and in this case it is an adverb, but there is no object afterwards. Okay? Here is another example. I don't have enough money to get by. Get in get by is the main verb. By is the particle. In this case, it is a preposition. Note that the phrasal verb is not accompanied by an object. Okay? Type 2 phrasal verb is actually referred to as separable. In other words, you can separate the main verb from the particle. So for a phrasal verb such as turn off, you could say turn off the TV or turn the TV off. Either way, you notice that the TV is the object, and as such, you can put the object between the verb and the particle, or at the end after the particle. Okay? However, if the object is a pronoun, as in turn it off, it there of course is a pronoun. In that case, the object must go in the middle of the phrasal verb. That's between turn and the particle off. Okay? So you can say turn it off, but you can't say turn off it, except if you want to produce another meaning. For type 3 phrasal verb, it's not separable. It simply means that the object must go at the end of the phrasal verb. You cannot break them. Okay? So it doesn't matter if it has one or two particles, but in any case, the object must always go at the end. Here is an example. I need to deal with this problem. Or let's say I need to deal with it. So deal with is of course the phrasal verb, whereas this problem or the pronoun it is the object. So did you notice that the object came at the end and it cannot be broken? That's what. Now consider this other example. The dealers are cashing in on the scarcity of fuel. Now cash in on is a phrasal verb. In is an adverb, whereas on is a preposition. So this is an example of a phrasal verb that has two particles. Okay, but what I want you to note is that the object, which of course is the scarcity of fuel, came at the end. Okay. The fourth type of phrasal verb to be discussed herein is not a common one, but they are distinctive because they have two objects. So take a good example here. I'll keep you to your promise. In this expression, we have you, which is the first object, and your promise, which is the second object. So what does this mean? It simply means I will make sure that you don't break your promise to me. Okay? And it's not common, but we often hear such kind of expressions made. Do you know that some phrasal verbs can be turned into nouns by putting a hyphen between the words combined in them? Okay. Assuming you have drop out as a phrasal verb, which means withdraw, example from school, you can nominalize it by saying a drop out, someone who withdraws. And finally, just as a word may have different shades of meaning, a phrasal verb too does. Okay? So if you pick a phrasal verb such as take up, there are shades of meaning that you can get from it. For example, to start a job. Consonant sounds can be very tricky, isn't it? For example, sometimes you find it difficult to distinguish between po and bo. Sometimes sh and j, and so on. Please pay attention to this instructor as she takes you through this very important lesson. I'll see you.
Tricky Consonant Pairs, Part 1. Do some consonants in English sound too much alike? For example, some people may have trouble distinguishing the first sounds in sing and thing. or the first sounds in berry and very, or shop and chop, or pat and bat? Why do some consonants cause so much trouble? Often these problems happen because a sound in English doesn't exist in the learner's language. For example, many languages don't have the sound th as in thing. When you hear this sound for the first time, your mind doesn't recognize it, so you can't hear the sound well. So what happens then? When we meet new words with sounds that are new and strange, we often use familiar, comfortable sounds instead. When we say thing, it might sound like sing, fing, or ting. Sometimes these changes make it difficult for listeners to understand what we're saying, and that's a problem. So what can we do about this? First, we need to be aware of the sounds that are causing problems and try to understand the differences between similar sounds. Next, we should try to listen carefully to tricky sounds so we can tell if we're saying them correctly. Finally, we should keep practicing those sounds so that our pronunciation is easier for listeners to understand. Let's practice some tricky consonant sounds. First, let's practice th as in thing and s as in sing. What's the difference between these two sounds? When you say th, your tongue touches the bottom edge of your top teeth, or it might stick out a little bit between your teeth. Then the air comes out gently. It's a voiceless sound. When you say s, your tongue almost touches the top of your mouth, just behind your top teeth. Then the air comes out gently. This sound is also voiceless. Feel the position of your tongue when you say these two sounds. It's touching the bottom of your top teeth when you say th, and almost touching behind your teeth when you say s. If you sometimes say s instead of th, so that thing sounds like sing, try this. Pretend you're licking a lollipop. This will help your tongue stick out just a little bit so you can say the sound correctly. Now let's practice th and s. Thing, sing. Thumb, some. Math, mass. I thought I heard something silly. This path goes through the forest. Now let's practice b as in berry and v as in very. When you say b, both your lips touch and then pop open. This sound is voiced. When you say v, your top teeth touch your bottom lip. Then air comes out gently. There's no popping motion. This sound is also voiced. Pay attention to the position of your lips and teeth. Both lips together for b, but your top teeth touching your bottom lip for v. If you sometimes say b instead of v, so that very sounds like berry, try putting your finger on your top lip so it can't come down to touch your bottom lip. Make sure your lips don't pop open when you're saying the v sound. They should stay still. Now let's practice b and v. Very, very. Boat, vote. Curb, curve. Bob never gave Vern a birthday present. Vera likes volleyball and basketball very much. Next, let's practice sh as in ship and ch as in chip. When you say sh, your tongue almost touches the top of your mouth. Then the air comes out gently. Your lips are a little bit rounded, and the sound is voiceless. When you say ch, your tongue touches the top of your mouth firmly, in the same place as when you say sh. But for ch, your tongue pops open with a bit of a hissing sound. Your lips are a little bit rounded, and the sound is voiceless. Feel the movement of your tongue. When you say sh, your tongue doesn't move, and it never quite touches the top of your mouth. When you say ch, your tongue moves. It touches the top of your mouth, then pops open. If you sometimes confuse sh and ch, try this. Put your hand under your chin as you say the sounds. You should feel a little movement when you say ch. When you say sh, there should be no movement. When you say shh, you can continue to make the sound for a long time. Shh. When you say ch, you can't. The sound ends suddenly. Ch. Now let's practice sh and ch. Ship, chip. Shows, chose. Wash, watch. Chuck's favorite dish is fish and chips. I wish I had some chocolate chip cookies.